In the most recent chapter of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, we see Sarada end up using her Mangekyo Sharingan, which she had reactivated at that time. And now, with everything that we've seen in this chapter, this absolutely crazy chapter, we can finally say that Sarada is Otsutsuki level. But what exactly does that mean? In today's video, we'll be breaking down Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan abilities and exactly where she scales in the verse, as there are two camps: those who believe that it is not really all that impressive and doesn't make her Otsutsuki level, and those who are on my side, those believing that she has become this Otsutsuki level threat. So let's start off the breakdown with a simple analysis of her ability. Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan, and we don't necessarily know if it is two abilities that she has showcased. Maybe it is, but maybe it is not. But simply due to the fact that one was named and another was not, I'm going to go off the basis that this is her only Mangekyo Sharingan ability, Mangekyo Sharingan or Hiram. And what we can basically see from this one ability that Sarada has been able to showcase is that she is able to create these black spheres that have gravitational proponents and abilities attached to them. From what we currently saw in Boruto chapter 21, we see that she is able to spawn 1 to 4 of these black spheres. Whether she is able to spawn more at another time, it is something that we'll have to end up seeing. But for the moment, what we saw in that episode is that she is able to use 4. In that chapter, we see that each and every of the spheres of having this gravitational proponent where the spheres are able to not only suck in ninjutsu or any sort of ability that ends up using chakra, but it is also able to suck in other people. And this is what we see end up happening to the likes of Ryu. This is not necessarily the first time that we have seen these gravitational-like abilities. We do see it with some of the abilities of the Rinnegan, which allows to pull and attract someone, and we also see it in some sort when it comes to the Chubaku Tensei, which for Sasuke ends up allowing him to make somebody the center of the Chubaku Tensei, where they become the entity that ends up pulling everything together. And for the likes of Pain, he creates this black sphere, a bit like Sarada, that ends up pulling everything to its core due to its gravitational proponent. And this is what we see more when it comes to the like of Sarada. We also get from Kaguya similar abilities when it comes to those gravitational powers that we do end up seeing Sarada showcase. When it comes to Kaguya though, it is more like this world which she ends up transporting everybody to, that ends up having this world that has a lot more gravity, and thus she is also affected by that gravity. When it comes to Sarada, in her case, she is not affected by that gravity, and she can also choose the people who will be affected and those who won't. We don't see the sand from the basic background and setting of this battle being absorbed. It is only Ryu's iron sand. And just like Mitsuki notes, it is Ryu and the iron sand that are being absorbed, alongside Sarada too, that is also being pulled and affected by this gravity. However, she controls the effect. Where Ryu ends up being absorbed by that black sphere and then is defeated, we have a Sarada that uses those gravitational proponents to allow her to float and go higher up in the air. Those are the abilities that we see just from that one MS ability, which essentially deals with the creation of these black spheres, which are able to have these gravitational proponents, which Sarada can manipulate to end up helping herself and harm her opponent, which in this case was Ryu. One thing that a lot of people were discussing at first is whether those spheres are transporting these various objects like the iron sand and Ryu to a different location, or are simply destroying it. And what we can see from what happens from Ryu and the appearance of his soul thorn is that at least when Ryu is being sucked in, he is completely being destroyed by that ability. From what I'm seeing, there is some sort of an explosion that ends up disintegrating Ryu to the extent where the soul thorn ends up appearing from the remaining ashes that was created, just like what happened when Kawaki ended up blowing up the remaining piece of Hidari's body, which was his head and a bit of his chest. when that was destroyed and blown up, we see similar ashes appear, and then a torn soul ends up appearing too. So I feel like it is more of an exploding ability in this case when it comes to simply Ryu and the target that Sarada ends up having, but maybe I can end up being wrong and it is something completely different. However, based off evidence, I would say that my line of reasoning is correct. Now, where exactly does this make Sarada scale? And when we talk about Sarada scaling, it is very interesting, and I can agree that it is confusing, especially before what we end up seeing. So Sarada, before the time skip, is somebody around the same speed at the likes of Boro. We see that she's able to use her Chidori and track the movement within Boro and his core and be able to hit it with pinpoint accuracy and strong enough for it to destroy Boro's core and cause him to go berserk. Clearly, she doesn't scale to the likes of Boro. When it comes to Boro going out of control, Sarada was promptly defeated after. And I can't really say that her individually at that moment ends up scaling to the likes of Boro, as it really took a team effort for all of this to happen. However, what I would say is that Sarada's speed is something that we have consistently seen throughout this series be talked about. Boro ended up saying that Sarada is fast when she was using her Chidori to end up attacking him, to the point where he was not able to react. And we also have, now moving on to her time skip scaling, her being able to dodge the likes of Hidari. She was capable of dodging the likes of Hidari, who was using his Chidori, although he doesn't have the Sharingan and can't really react to subtle movements that are taken after he ends up using the Chidori. It is still quite impressive for Sarada, who Hidari was quite close of, and out of nowhere, he ended up using the Chidori to hit Sarada. Sarada was not only able to dodge it, but she was able to fire back one of her own. So one thing that has been quite consistent is the fact that Sarada possesses speed that is at least relative to the top tier characters that we see in this series. Now, when it comes to the character that she ends up defeating in this chapter, being Ryu, there is no doubt about it at this current moment that Sarada absolutely is stronger than Ryu. Not only because she ended up defeating him, but also due to the fact of how she did it. She didn't do it with the help of anybody, being Mitsuki or the guys from the Land of Wind. She did it by herself, and by herself, she ended up completely destroying the likes of Ryu. Now, a lot of people are gonna say it is simply hacks, since it is the Mangekyo Sharingan abilities that she ends up using, so her base self is still the same. However, that's not how the Mangekyo Sharingan necessarily works. The Mangekyo Sharingan, as Sasuke said, is a mutation. And when that mutation ends up occurring, as we see with Tobirama, and as we also see from Kirin, it intensifies the chakra of that person, making them even stronger. For the likes of Sasuke, since he had a lot of hatred in his heart, it made his chakra look even more heinous. It made his chakra look darker and appear evil. But for Sarada, obviously, she doesn't have that hatred that Sasuke has. However, due to her awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, we can already clearly see that there is going to be an amplification of her current chakra and her current base stats. That's why awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan is not only just important for hacks, but it does end up making the user a lot stronger. And we clearly saw that with the likes of Sasuke. Now, to end up finding and confirming whether Sarada is Otsutsuki level, we have to first establish what exactly is this Otsutsuki level. So instead of just calling it Otsutsuki level, I'm just going to call it high tier, as some Otsutsukis don't actually fall in this high tier meta that a lot of us are using right now. But there is this Senju threshold that one must reach to really consider them a strong character. And in my opinion, it is best to say this code or Jigen threshold that one has to get to really be called strong, because a lot of the scaling for that ends up involving code and the likes of Jigen, so I feel like it's a better fit to call it that. So when it comes to Jigen scaling, we can clearly go back to the fight between Sasuke and Naruto, and that's what is referred to Prime Sasuke and Naruto. We're not talking about Baryon mode in any sort of capacity. And in that fight, before Jigen ended up using the karma, it was already looking pretty tight, with a Jigen who was clearly winning. But when Jigen uses the karma, it is not a conversation at all, and ends up leaving Sasuke and Naruto quite injured, with a Naruto who had to later on be saved. Jigen clearly outclassed Naruto and Sasuke at that moment, which now marked a new threshold of power that one must reach. And this was seen with the likes of Code, who Code, after getting his limiters removed, was stated to be an even greater threat than the likes of Jigen, somebody who is stronger and surpassed Jigen. So for people who are saying that Code isn't actually stronger than Jigen when he has his limiters removed, that was the entire point of him getting his limiters. So for those people who are saying that no limiter Code is not stronger than Jigen when he got his limiters, that was simply the whole point of him getting his limiters. If Code was not stronger without his limiters than Jigen, then Code would have never gotten limiters, as the reason why Code got his limiters was because he didn't want to be stronger than this god Jigen, who he's viewed as and worshipped, so he placed limiters upon him so that he would be weaker. And not only do we have this information as I point out, but we have the likes of Damon that confirms to Code that he is stronger than Jigen, but it doesn't matter to Damon because he is number 1. So who is competing for second or third doesn't matter to Damon at all. But when we get this line of thinking and then we see the appearance of the Senju, this is where things get a lot more critical, as not only is it narratively implied that the Senju are stronger than Code, but we literally see with the appearance of Ryu and with everything that Ryu does, the person that Sarada ends up beating, we saw that panel of Ryu literally holding Code by his neck, and clearly it could be stated that, oh, Code was off guard, he didn't know that Ryu can sense him, so it doesn't really count. However, what Ryu says next, it makes it quite clear. And we literally have a Ryu who ends up asking Jira if he could kill Code, which does imply that he knows he has the power to do so. This is a Ryu who just saw Code lose his arm when he was trying to fight the likes of Jira, and he had his karma active at that time, which does reinforce the fact that Ryu in that instance does show narratively that he is stronger than the likes of Code, without him actually having to defeat Code himself. There are moments where we see a character being defeated by another character, and thus we can prove that the other character is stronger. However, sometimes we have statements and narrative implications that simply let us know when a character is stronger than the other, and this is a great example of that right here. So now, what exactly does it mean for Sarada and her scaling? Sarada was able to quickly dispatch of the likes of Ryu, a Sarada who was already firing multiple jutsu, already using a lot of her chakra, and we had a Ryu who is essentially this immortal god connected to the divine tree, so whenever he needs healing, he can simply go back to that dimension like Hidari did and heal himself. So with a Sarada who has already used up a lot of chakra and has been battling and obviously taking these various injuries, we literally see her use fire style Jidori multiple different times. This Sarada, after using her Mangekyo Sharingan, was able to destroy Ryu with a Ryu who wasn't able to lay a finger on Sarada. If this isn't the biggest display of somebody simply outclassing you, I don't know what is. And thus, because of that, this ends up placing Sarada above the likes of Ryu, and thus places Sarada above the likes of Code and Jigen. And thus means that Sarada has passed on to this Otsutsuki level, or this high tier character level that we do end up seeing. Not as strong as the likes of Boruto, and not as strong as the likes of Jira or Damon, but strong enough to be able to defeat a Senju. And we haven't seen any other Senju who have been taken out by one person alone. Even Boruto needed the help of Sarada when it came to Hidari. So what we're seeing right here is the first person, being Sarada, being able to kill a Senju by herself. And if you simply don't believe this, and you think that, oh, Sarada isn't that strong and Ryu doesn't scale to the likes of Code, we have to talk about what is happening next. Everything that we're seeing right now is essentially set up for Hidari versus Sarada. And I'll have a specific video upon this later, but Sarada is going to be the one to end up defeating Hidari. And after she does, it's basically going to scale her a lot closer to the likes of Boruto, with a Boruto and Hidari who were clearly shown to be relative when we saw their Rasengan and Jidori confrontation. So this is the path in which Sarada is leading up to, and I know Sarada pre-time skip wasn't one to have a lot of focus upon her. However, you have to see what is being shown to us. Sarada is part of the main character cast of the series alongside Boruto and Kawaki. She is the one who is going going to end up being Hokage. And through all the different advertisements that we have already seen for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex so far, Sarada has always taken the main stage, alongside Boruto and the likes of Kawaki, as she has appeared on V-Jump by herself, which Kawaki has never done before. So a lot of people simply have to stop doubting the likes of Sarada. Sarada is one of those people who is going to be part of those strongest characters in the series, and with this ability that we are only seeing, and that is one, we can already see how much stronger she has become. Look at her genetics. She has the genetics of Sasuke, who literally had the influence of Hagoromo and Otsutsuki, and she was birthed from somebody who was able to take down those Otsutsukis himself. And at the end of the series, after everything is said and done, we had a Sasuke who trained so hard that he would be able to take down a threat like Kaguya by himself. It is stated in the novels. So a lot of people just have to come to the understanding that Sarada is simply her in the series right now. And it is time for people to stop underestimating Sarada, as it is just like Sasuke said. With those powers, Sarada is going to be able to help Boruto in defeating those future threats that Sasuke warned about. And to find out about that threat that Sasuke warned about, make sure to watch this video right here.